As you can see, what a beautiful job the flail mower does in clearing up these beds. And I want to point out some structural elements of these raised beds. I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. Okay, so the BCS tractor is about 40 inches wide. It has a mower head on it for a flail mower about 38 inches wide, and it really loves to be on level ground. So when we flail these beds out, it does chop down the material, makes it kind of thin. We'll follow up by terminating it with a light tillage. I'll have another video of that here soon. That's why you should like and subscribe. But notice how narrow of a cut we have here. So we have a terrace that's level, permanent raised beds. We're only using surface level tillage and just to terminate the cover crops. And these hills we're not cutting because you can't just cut them with a flail mower. It just doesn't. There's a drop here, probably about a foot. What this grass does is called a vegetative strip. Is it helps us identify the edge of where our equipment limitations are, and defines the overall terrace. Now, over time, we might end up tilling this out to make one solid terrace, because when you're using equipment, you got to be super careful. But this one's actually very clean because I have a nice hard strip at the top here on this edge that I can get pretty close to the edge with the mower, and then I have a nice contour walking path at the bottom where I can get the bottom edge cut. And you can see the next bed is about the same. It has a nice little slope. This one's a little bit taller because the hill is not as steep. But again, we're flail mowing out all of the biomass, leaving the crop residue on the ground, and then we come back and just do an inch or 2 inches of tillage in order just to break up the ground. Now, could we go ahead and plant plants in here? And I would say yes, we can, because see, look, the roots are not that far in the ground. You see how I was able to just take that out? And you can see the soil here. So our tillage really is not about turning the soil over. It's just about breaking up the surface of the soil to get these clumps of grass out. See, the grass really is not in there that deep. Again, now I am tearing it at the base, so there's still root way down in the ground, but all we're doing is we're breaking up that surface so that we can come in here and start putting in plant starts. Okay, we're using plant starts. If we don't terminate the crop with the light tillage or with a with a ripper or something like that, then we're going to have the plants competing with the cover crop. They'll still compete with the cover crop a little bit, but not as much if we do that shallow tillage. But again, the infrastructure is outlined by the remaining grass clumps. And then after we put the plants in place, and you can see how steep some of these are, after we put the plants in place, I come down through here with a hand scythe and I just basically cut off some material and I use it as mulch around the plants. Doesn't take a lot of effort. So the majority of the work is done with the BCS or done with some sort of lightweight equipment, and the rest is done by hand as we put the plants out. And you can see how thick some of these edges are, but also how some of these beds are kind of collapsed a little bit. So you can see how wide that strip is. That's because the steps are not as steep down here as the hill levels out. Now, as the hill levels out more, and this is part of your design, you're going to have wider and wider terraces. And you don't have to make these terraces wide the first time around. You don't have to get an excavator in here and cut it out. You can simply just start season by season growing things in place. The daikon radish did a really good job of digging up the soil or loosening up the soil, but a lot of this stuff is just going to get spread out. So a lot of these bumps and hills simply just get spread out, and we end up with this terrace. Now, we're going to let a lot of the grass down on the bottom grow out to term, so that we can show some other different things going on. We can cut some long grass and show you that as animal fodder. Because, by the way, if I flail mowed all of this area, I would have eliminated all the feed value of what we've got here. So a lot of folks, you only got 5 acres. See, this is a 2-acre garden area enclosure, and you might only have 5 acres total property. And so for every square foot of garden space, you may not have a square foot of grass to do straw on site or to do mulch on site. And you definitely may not have the space to run animals. So doing something like this, the actual cutting of the grass could have been done by impounding goats or impounding chickens or impounding some other animal who's gonna graze on this. But if you have your animals in an enclosure, you can come out here with a scythe after the grass has grown up some more, cut it off, take it to the animals, and use it as animal feed. So the vegetative strip system facilitates the animal feed or the nutrients for our animals. It provides habitat and shelter. You know, you hear the chicken tractor, right? You could put a chicken tractor on this row and work this over. So I wouldn't have to use tillage. The chickens are going to do the same shallow tillage. They're going to dig up all of the clumps of grass and everything, and they're going to, of course, fertilize, but they're also going to eat all the bugs. So you can run a chicken tractor through here as well. So what we're showing you here in these demonstrations is a variety of design concepts that help you grow on the land you have. See, you want to start at home. You know, I hear a lot of you folks saying, well, if shit hits the fan, we're going to go to your property. We're going to go to this property. We know what's... No, you can do this at home. You just do this at your home, whether it's a 1/4 acre garden or an acre garden or a 5-acre garden. You start with the tools that you have. You don't need a BCS tractor. You don't need any equipment. You can do this with a hoe. You know, you can really dig out these shelves with a... Well, actually, I dug out a lot of these shelves with a hoe. But can you see how we're stacking function? So we still have a growing space, and I'll be out here tomorrow to till, and we have growing spaces opening up immediately. But we also have biomass on site to use as mulch, but we also have biomass to use as animal fodder and feed. And we also have stability, because if I till out this back end, even if it's shallow, when we have a heavy rain, it could cause some wash, and we don't want that. We want the water to slow, spread, and soak. So again, this grass on the edge helps shore up this hill. Now eventually, we're going to walk on this edge out here and not ever walk in the garden beds. But again, this is not to that point of maturity yet. It's an excellent growing space, but it's still got room for improvement. And we implement that improvement each year systematically rather than try to get it all done at once. Because look at this. Look at this residue on here. And below the ground, oh, found a rock. Below the ground, we get this nice, look at this organic soil. It used to be all clay, and now look at that. It's got a variety of things in it. Now we still got this kind of grass. Another reason I do the shallow tillage is to get these rhizome, this grass that crawls around, to get this grass out of here. And you'll see all this soil, beautiful soil. We're growing the soil here. If we do deep tillage, we're not necessarily incorporating the organic material in a useful way. This is all rocks that come out. But the shallow tillage emulates small animals. It helps stop the cover crops so that we're not competing with our cover crops, and then ultimately allows us to cover crop again later and preserve a lot of biomass that we can again feed the animals. We can use it as bedding. We can use it as mulch. We're doing it all in place. We don't have to bring a bale of straw in. And by the way, one of these rows from one end to the other is probably about a half a bale of straw. So we're gonna get the straw that we need from the land nearby. We still might bring in straw for some things, but ultimately we're building soil. Yes, this upper row will get compacted, but the rest of it will not, because we're primarily just scraping the surface and turning the soil over. Now there's a couple other types of tillers that can do that better than the rotary tiller, but again, you use what you got. We've got a rotary tiller. We'll till the beds up just 1 inch or 2 inches, 1 to 3 inches. That'll terminate all the rye and the different types of grass. And by the way, you can let this grass grow to seed if you want, to get the seed value. But now we're intercropping in between. So I'm gonna leave you with one thing. This is kind of like silvopasture if you've got trees in the system. So if this was much larger, and for example, from the top to the bottom was a level terrace, and then down on the end we had probably a 4-foot drop, that 4 foot would be planted out with trees, kind of like what we're doing in this row down here. We're allowing any trees to grow on the step down. We would just let trees grow, and then we would continue to make out these little areas to give us the level areas to grow. And you can have these little pocket gardens here and there. Again, the vegetative strips can be wildflowers, can be cereal grains, they can be different types of cover crop, hairy vetch. Some of these have little flowers in them, but it's primarily to build that structure out, to build that framework, and then we garden in between it. And again, it doesn't matter if you've got a 12-foot by 12-foot space or you've got a 2-acre enclosure. Get started right now. Testing these methods in your environment. Try these methods. You will see that you can get a lot of growth out of these concepts. It doesn't require as much effort as you might think, but ultimately this is permaculture in action. This is regenerative farming. This is building out systems that provide for themselves, that cycle nutrients, that have minimal inputs and maximum outputs. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions about this or anything else we cover, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Visit www.prosperityhomestead.org, where we have a paid newsletter where we discuss these items. We get you access to longer videos. We answer your questions so you aren't having to search around the interwebs, and you can ultimately have more time to get out and enjoy your growing on. Thanks for watching.